Imagine possessing wealth beyond dreams, a loving family, profound wisdom, an unwavering faith, a life seemingly perfect, kissed by fortune at every turn. But what happens when the very bedrock of that existence is shaken to its absolute core? This is the story of a man known across faiths, a prophet named Job, or Ayyub, in Arabic tradition, a descendant of prophets himself, whose life became a testament to unimaginable and he wasn't just wealthy. He commanded vast lands teeming with crops, pastures overflowing with livestock, and hundreds of loyal servants attending his needs. God had blessed him abundantly, not just with material riches, but with a righteous, devoted wife and a house full of strong, healthy children who were the light of his life. Yet, despite this immense prosperity, Job remained deeply pious, his days filled with worship, his nights with remembrance of God, his hands always open in generosity to those less fortunate. He was a beacon of faith in his community. Yet, even the brightest light can attract darkness, and a trial of unimaginable proportions was about to descend. Poised to test the very limits of human endurance and faith, it started subtly, almost imperceptibly at first, then escalated with terrifying speed. The pillars supporting Job's world of prosperity began to crumble, one after another, as if targeted by some unseen, malevolent force. His wealth, once legendary, started to vanish. Farms that yielded bountiful harvests suddenly failed, scorched and barren. Livestock, the symbol of his affluence, perished in droves from disease or disaster. Assets accumulated over a lifetime dissolved like mist. His numerous servants, seeing the fortune dwindle, began to depart, leaving him with fewer hands and mounting worries. The vast empire he had carefully built over decades started to disintegrate before his very eyes. Yet, faced with this bewildering cascade of loss, Job showed no despair, no anger. His reaction was one of profound patience and quiet acceptance. Recognizing the transient nature of worldly possessions and submitting to the he held firm will of God, understanding that life itself is a series of tests, his faith unshaken by the loss of material comfort. But material wealth was one thing. The next wave of calamity would strike far closer to home, aiming at the very heart and challenging his emotional fortitude in the most agonizing way possible. How much loss can a single soul truly bear before breaking? Job's trials escalated dramatically, moving beyond possessions to the irreplaceable, the pieces of his own heart, his children. The text speaks of unimaginable grief as his children were taken from him, one after the other. Some compounding accounts mention 10, others more, each loss a fresh stab of pain, sorrow until it seemed unbearable. Imagine the silence in a home once filled with laughter, the empty spaces where beloved faces used to be. This was the ultimate test of faith, a crucible designed to melt even the strongest resolve. Yet, even he turned amidst this overwhelming, soul-crushing sorrow. Job remained steadfast to God, not in anger or questioning, but in continued submission. His patience, a shield against utter despair. Some traditions even whisper of a darker influence, suggesting Satan himself, envious of Job's piety, played a role in orchestrating this hardship, afflicting him with profound pain and loss. Stripped bare of his wealth, his legacy seemingly erased with the loss of his heirs, Job was left vulnerable, standing amidst the ruins of his former life, with only his loyal wife remaining by his side. But the affliction wasn't finished with him. It was about to turn inward, launching a devastating assault on his physical being. The suffering then manifested physically, creeping into his very flesh and bone, ravaging Job's body with a disease so severe, so repulsive, that it drove people away in fear and disgust. Painful boils erupted across his skin. His body began to decay, transforming the once vibrant man into a figure that elicited revulsion rather than sympathy. The social isolation was almost as painful as the physical ailment. Friends who once sought his counsel now shunned him. Community members, seeing his condition worsen, kept their distance, whispering judgments behind his back, speculating darkly about some terrible hidden sin he must have committed to deserve such a harsh punishment from God. Their perception, their harsh words, became another layer of his torment. Eventually, the illness overwhelmed him completely. Job became bedridden, his limbs refusing to move, his strength utterly gone. He lay paralyzed, a prisoner in his own failing body, with only his tongue left free to remember God, his mind to reflect, and his heart to beat, alongside the unwavering presence of his loyal wife, who refused to abandon him. This state of utter helplessness, however, wasn't a brief nightmare. It stretched into years, becoming a relentless, grinding test of faith, endured in the face of constant pain, loneliness, and societal abandonment. 18 long years, picture it, nearly 2 decades trapped within a decaying body, confined to a bed, isolated from the world, judged harshly by those who once respected him, relying solely on the tireless, thankless care of one person. The sheer duration of this trial is staggering, the physical and emotional toll almost impossible to comprehend. Throughout this agonizing marathon of suffering, his wife remained his anchor. She became his hands and feet, working tirelessly day after day, often facing rejection and scorn herself because of her association with him, just to earn enough for a meager piece of bread to feed him. To keep him alive, she washed him, tended to his painful sores, managed his needs, her devotion a silent testament to her own strength and loyalty. And Job, despite the unending pain, the humiliation, the loss, his resilience was extraordinary. His faith, though tested to its absolute limit, did not break. His tongue remained moist with the remembrance of God. His heart still turned towards his Lord in acceptance. There's a poignant account of his few remaining friends visiting, not to offer comfort, but to accuse him, suggesting his suffering was proof of some monumental, hidden sin. Job remained silent, dignified, but a young man present reportedly rebuked them fiercely for slandering God's prophet. Job simply acknowledged the wisdom found, even in youth. His spirit endured, but even the most devoted caregiver, the most loyal partner, can reach a breaking point under such prolonged, crushing weight, leading inevitably to a moment that would change the course of this agonizing ordeal forever. What happens when your very last lifeline begins to fray? Job's wife, after nearly 2 decades of unrelenting sacrifice and hardship, finally reached a point of utter desperation, a moment born of exhaustion and love that spurred a pivotal turn in this harrowing saga. Worn down by the endless struggle, seeing no end in sight, she approached Job, her voice perhaps trembling with fatigue and sorrow, urging him to finally supplicate God for relief. "Job," she might have said, her voice weary, "you are a prophet. God answers your prayers. Ask him, just ask him to lift this suffering." It wasn't a lack of faith, perhaps, but the sheer weight of 18 years pressing down. Job, however, reacted with a flash of anger born from his unwavering perspective. "Have you lost patience?" he questioned, reminding her sharply of the 70 years of blessings they had enjoyed compared to these years of trial. "Is it not right to endure his affliction as we enjoyed his bounty?" In his frustration, he swore a solemn oath. "If God restores my health, I will strike you 100 times for this moment of weakness." But the situation grew even more dire. The community, fearing contagion, or perhaps simply weary of the long spectacle of suffering, began to completely shun Job's wife. Doors were closed in her face. Work dried up. Starvation became a terrifyingly real possibility. Faced with this ultimate hardship, she made a heartbreaking sacrifice. She cut off her beautiful braids, her prized possession, and secretly sold them to wealthy women to buy food. When she presented the food to Job, he demanded to know its source. Reluctantly, she revealed her act, removing her head covering to show her shorn hair. Seeing this, seeing the depth sacrifice and the indignity Shiva had endured for his sake, finally broke Job's stoic reserve. His heart ached, not for himself, but for her. And in that, the heavens and moment of profound empathy, after 18 years of patient endurance, he turned his face towards, uttered a prayer, not of complaint, but of pure, humble vulnerability. Indeed, adversity has touched me, and you are the most merciful of the merciful. This raw, vulnerable plea, born not from personal despair, but from deep compassion for his devoted wife, finally unlocked the gates of divine mercy. In the depths of that prolonged suffering, a divine command suddenly echoed in the stillness, piercing through the despair. Strike the ground with your foot. Imagine the scene. A man paralyzed for nearly 2 decades, commanded to move, yet faith surged. He obeyed. As his foot struck the earth, a miracle unfolded. Cool, clear water began to gush forth from the dry ground, forming a spring right there in his desolate room. God instructed him further. Wash in this water, drink from it. As the miraculous water touched his diseased skin, the sores vanished. As he drank, the internal ailments disappeared. Health flooded back into his limbs. Strength returned to his muscles. The ravages of time and sickness were washed away, and incredibly, his youth and vitality were. He stood up, whole, completely restored, and vibrant, a man reborn. Just then, his wife returned. Perhaps bracing herself for another day of hardship, she entered the room to find the bed empty, water pooling on the floor, and a strong, unfamiliar young man standing where her afflicted husband had lain moments before. Panic seized her. Had something terrible happened? She cried out, searching frantically, asking the stranger if he had seen the suffering prophet. He simply looked at her, a gentle smile perhaps playing on his lips, and asked, "Do you not recognize me?" She peered closer, confused. "No," she admitted. "But you," he revealed himself. "I resemble my husband more than anyone. Back when he was healthy, before the affliction." Job, disbelief warred with hope. "Are you mocking my grief?" she cried. But he assured her, "No, by God, he has restored me." Joy, overwhelming and profound, washed over them. And God's mercy didn't stop there. In that moment of reunion, Job's wife also felt her own youth and vitality miraculously return. The healing was profound, complete, but God's restoration wasn't finished. The blessings were about to return, multiplied, demonstrating the incredible rewards of unwavering patience. Job's legendary patience wasn't just a story of quiet, and it became a saga of abundant reward, leaving a timeless legacy of faith and resilience that echoes through generations. The restoration was as dramatic as the trials had been severe. His family wasn't just returned, it was multiplied. Accounts say God blessed him with double the number of children he had lost, filling his home once again with life and laughter. Wealth flowed back to him, perhaps symbolized in the story of golden locusts descending upon him, a heavenly bounty he eagerly gathered, acknowledging that one can never be independent of God's blessings. He was granted many more years of life. Some say another 70, lived in health, prosperity, and continued devotion. But what about the oath, sworn in a moment of anger against his wife? God, in his infinite mercy, provided a gentle way out. He instructed Job to take a bundle of 100 blades of soft grass or palm fibers and strike her lightly with it just once, thus fulfilling the letter of the oath, without causing pain or breaking his an excellent servant. Indeed, he were a testament to both divine justice and compassion. Job's story became the ultimate benchmark for patience. His life serves as a powerful Quran states. Indeed, we found him patient, was one repeatedly turning back to Allah. Enduring reminder that trials are designed to test and purify faith, and that steadfastness, even when everything seems lost, brings immense reward, and draws one closer to the divine. It forces us to look inward and ask, how deep does our own patience run when faced with life's inevitable storms? And can we, like Job, hold on to faith even in the darkest night? Let's delve deeper into that initial picture of perfection. Job wasn't merely rich. He was a magnate of his time, a figure whose prosperity was spoken of in hushed, envious tones. Imagine sprawling estates, not just acres, but vast tracts of fertile land, stretching as far as the eye could see, shimmering green under the Levant sun. Picture granaries overflowing with harvests, storehouses packed with goods, and herds of camels, cattle, sheep, and goats so numerous they dotted the landscape like living constellations. His household wasn't just servants. It was a small, bustling community in itself. Skilled artisans, loyal attendants, field workers, all looking to him not just as a master, but as a benevolent provider. And his family. The accounts paint a picture of domestic bliss, a wife renowned for her piety and grace, and children, strong sons and radiant daughters, who brought him immeasurable joy. His home echoed with laughter and learning. Yet, Job wore this immense fortune lightly. He saw it not as his own achievement, but as a trust from God, a responsibility. His days began before dawn with prayers. His wealth was shared generously with the poor and the traveler. His wisdom sought by those in dispute. His character marked by integrity and a profound, unwavering connection to the divine. He embodied the ideal of righteous prosperity. But the very scale of these blessings, the sheer perfection of his life, seemed almost to challenge the shadows, drawing the attention of forces that thrive on envy and seek to test the foundations of faith. The stage was set for a trial that would become legendary. Now, consider how that idyllic world began. It wasn't a single, swift to unravel blow, but a relentless, systematic dismantling. One day, reports arrived. A blight had swept through his most fertile fields, turning vibrant crops into withered stalks overnight. Then, news of his prized livestock, herds decimated by sudden disease, or perhaps raided by ruthless bandits who vanished without a trace. Valuable trade caravans carrying his goods simply disappeared, swallowed by the desert or misfortune. His assets, meticulously managed, began to evaporate. The whispers started then, quiet through inexplicable losses and failed ventures. At first, among the servants who saw their secure world dissolving, some, their loyalty tied only to fortune, began to slip away, seeking stability elsewhere. Others watched their master, bewildered. How could such misfortune befall a man so righteous? Job, however, remained a pillar of calm amidst the growing storm. While undoubtedly concerned, his response wasn't panic or despair. He didn't curse fate or question God's justice. Instead, he turned inward, his prayers perhaps growing longer, his reliance on God deepening. He understood, with a clarity few possess, that worldly possessions are fleeting. gifts that can be withdrawn as easily as they are given. His faith was anchored not in his wealth, but in the giver of that wealth. He accepted these initial losses as part of a divine plan. The true test he was determined to pass. But this was merely the overture. Agony, the strike aimed directly at his soul, was yet to come, targeting the very core of his human heart. Imagine the chilling progression from losing things to losing beings, losing the very extensions of oneself. The loss of wealth stings, but the loss of a child shatters the soul in a way nothing else can. Job's trial escalated to this horrifying crescendo. Reports came, perhaps one by one, perhaps in a single, devastating wave. A sudden accident, a fatal illness, a catastrophic event, claiming the lives of his beloved children. 10, 12, maybe more, the numbers vary, but the impact is the same. Unimaginable, repeated heartbreak. Picture the father receiving this news again and again, each report a fresh wound, tearing open the previous one. The silence descending upon a home once vibrant with youthful energy must have been deafening. Each empty room, a monument to his grief. This wasn't just loss, it was the systematic erasure of his future, his legacy. How does one endure such pain without succumbing to bitterness or rage? Job's response remains almost superhuman in its restraint. While grief, he undoubtedly racked him, his faith held firm. He didn't rail against heaven, didn't curse the day he was born, though the temptation must have been immense. Instead, he prostrated himself, acknowledging God's sovereignty even in the face of such profound sorrow. "Naked I came from my mother's womb," he is the famously quoted as saying in some traditions, "and naked shall I return. Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." It's here that the whispers of a darker, challenging God, supernatural element often surface in the narrative. The idea of Satan, Iblis, in Islamic tradition, claiming Job's piety was merely a product of his prosperity, boasting that Job would surely curse God if his blessings were removed. This adds another layer, suggesting Job wasn't just battling loss, but was an unwitting participant in a cosmic test of faith, left with nothing but his wife, standing amidst the wreckage of his life. Job's ordeal was far from over. The assault was about to become intensely personal, targeting his own flesh. Then came the physical torment, an affliction that turned Job from a respected figure into an object of pity and revulsion. It wasn't a simple illness. It was a devastating condition described in harrowing terms. Painful sores, oozing boils, erupted all over his body. From the crown of his head to the soles of his feet, his skin became inflamed, itchy beyond endurance, perhaps even decaying, emitting a foul odor. He might have used shards of pottery to scrape himself, seeking even a moment's relief from the incessant agony. His handsome features became distorted by the death that accompanied it was disease. His strong body weakened, frail. He became unrecognizable, a fear of grotesque shadow of his former self. The physical suffering was immense, but the social, perhaps even crueler. People he had known his whole life, people he had helped and guided, now recoiled from him. What contagion, yes, but also a deeper, more insidious judgment took hold. Surely, they whispered, such extreme suffering could only be a punishment for some equally extreme, hidden sin. Terrible secret is he hiding, they murmured, their pity laced with condemnation. He was moved out of the community, perhaps dwelling on the outskirts, on an ash heap, a symbol of utter desolation. His former friends, when they eventually came, offered not comfort but condemnation, their long speeches filled with flawed theology and accusations, adding intellectual and emotional torment to his physical pain. He became utterly dependent, unable to move, unable to feed himself, a prisoner in a body that had become a source of constant torture. Only his mind remained sharp, his heart still capable of faith, and his tongue, miraculously, still able to utter prayers and remembrances of God. And beside him, through it all, remained his wife, Rama, in some traditions, his solitary companion in this living hell. The days bled into weeks, the weeks into months, the months into years, stretching into an agonizing eternity of pain and isolation. 18 years, let that number sink in. 18 years of relentless physical agony, of social ostracization, of being confined to a bed, watching the world go by from the sidelines of life. 18 years of depending entirely on the strength and devotion of one woman, the sheer monotony of suffering, day after day, punctuated only by the ebb and flow of pain and the hushed whispers of judgment from afar, is difficult to fathom. His wife, Rama, became his everything. Her days were a grueling cycle of labor and care. She would rise early, seeking whatever meager work she could find, washing clothes, cleaning houses, anything to earn a few coins for food. She often faced rejection, doors slammed in her face by those who feared her husband's illness or simply didn't want to be associated with such misfortune. Yet she persisted, returning each evening, exhausted but resolute, to tend to Job's needs. She would gently cleanse his sores, offer him sips of water, speak words of encouragement, her presence a constant, quiet rebuke to the world that had abandoned them. Imagine her own internal struggles. The weariness, the fading hope, the moments of despair she must have hidden from him, and Job, through it all, maintained his incredible patience. He didn't lash out in frustration. He didn't complain incessantly. His conversations, though perhaps strained by pain, were still centered on faith and acceptance. The visit from his friends, Elif and Zophar, stands out as a within thee. They sat with him in silence for particularly bitter trial, 7 days, overwhelmed by his suffering. But when they finally spoke, their words were knives, insisting his suffering must be his own fault, urging him to confess his hidden sins. Job defended his integrity, engaging them in profound dialogues about divine justice, suffering, and the nature of God, his faith challenged but ultimately unshaken. The story of the young man, Eli, intervening to correct the friends and offer a different perspective, that suffering isn't always punitive, but can be instructive or serve a higher purpose, provides a moment of intellectual relief, a validation of Job's endurance. Yet, even the strongest pillars can, not for Job himself, but eventually show cracks under immense, prolonged pressure. The breaking point was near for his devoted caregiver, triggering the final, desperate turn. Consider the crushing weight on Rama's shoulders. Nearly 2 decades of watching her husband suffer, of battling poverty and social stigma, of pouring her entire being into his care. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, and after 18 years, her hope must have been worn thin. It wasn't necessarily a failure of faith, but perhaps a moment of profound human exhaustion, a desperate yearning for an end to the seemingly endless suffering. Approaching Job, her voice likely thick with unshed tears and weariness, she made her plea. "My husband, you are God's chosen prophet. Your prayers are heard. Why do you not ask him? Plead with him to lift this affliction. How long must we endure this?" It was the cry of a soul stretched to its limit. Job's reaction, though rooted in his unwavering perspective on divine timing and acceptance, was sharp, perhaps fueled by his own pain and the sudden perception of wavering in his soul. "Companion, have you lost your senses? Shall we accept good from God and not accept adversity? He saw her plea not as an expression of love's desperation, but as a lapse in the patient endurance they had shared for so long. His harsh words, comparing the 70 years of blessings to the 80 of suffering, and the subsequent oath to strike her if healed, revealed the immense strain even he was under. But the situation deteriorated further. The community's fear and judgment intensified, leading them to completely ostracize Rama. No one would hire her, no one would sell to her. They faced starvation. It was in this absolute rock-bottom moment that she performed her act of ultimate sacrifice, cutting her treasured hair, a symbol of her dignity and beauty, to sell for food, presenting the meal to Job. His insistence on knowing its origin led to the heartbreaking revelation. Seeing her shorn head, understanding the depth of her humiliation endured for his sake, finally pierced Job's armor of stoic acceptance. It wasn't his own suffering that broke him, but hers. His heart overflowed with compassion and perhaps a sense of responsibility, and in that moment, turning his face to the heavens, his voice choked with emotion, he uttered the prayer that changed everything. Not a demand, not a complaint, but a simple, profound acknowledgement of his state and God's nature. Indeed, adversity has touched me, and you are the most merciful of the merciful. It was the prayer of ultimate surrender and trust, finally unlocking the floodgates of divine intervention. And the response was immediate, dramatic, miraculous. The divine voice, clear and commanding, instructed him, "Strike the ground with your foot," an act requiring faith, given his paralyzed state. But Job obeyed. As his foot connected with the earth, the ground miraculously gave way, and a spring of pure, cool water bubbled up. Imagine the sight, the sound, in that desolate place. Then the command, "This is a cool spring for washing and drinking." He immersed himself in the water, and instantly the agonizing sores vanished, his skin becoming smooth and healthy. He drank deeply, and the internal sickness, the years of decay, were flushed away. Strength surged back into his limbs. He felt vitality, energy he hadn't known in nearly 2 decades. Not only was he healed, but his youthfulness was restored. He stood tall and strong, transformed. Picture Rama's return. Expecting to find her husband in his usual state of suffering, she instead finds the empty bed, the mysterious pool of water, and this radiant, healthy stranger. Her initial reaction is terror, confusion, crying out for her lost, afflicted husband. The stranger's gentle question, "Do you not recognize me?" followed by her dawning realization, the resemblance to the Job she once knew before the nightmare began. His confirmation, "I am Job," and her subsequent disbelief turning into overwhelming, tearful joy. Their embrace must have been one of profound relief. The culmination of years of shared pain finally released, and the miracle extended further. Rama, too, felt her own strength and youth return. A shared restoration, a divine acknowledgement of her own unwavering faithfulness. The healing was absolute, a powerful testament to God's power and mercy. But the story doesn't end there. The restoration was about to become as legendary as the suffering itself. Job's story arc bends dramatically upwards from this point, transforming from a narrative of unparalleled suffering into one of divine restoration and abundant blessing. His patience, tested in the fiercest crucible imaginable, yielded rewards that surpassed even his former prosperity. The healing of his body and the reunion with his rejuvenated wife were just the beginning. God didn't just return what was lost, multiplied it. The silence of his home was broken once more by the sounds of children. Accounts vary, but the consistent theme is abundance. Some say he was granted 26 children, double the number he had tragically lost, ensuring his lineage and filling his later years with familial joy. Imagine the contrast. The desolate home now teeming with new life, laughter echoing where only groans of pain were heard for so long, and his wealth, it returned in ways that underscored its divine source. The tale of the golden locusts is particularly striking. While Job was bathing, perhaps near the miraculous spring, an even shower of locusts made of pure gold descended upon him. Instead of swatting them away, Job eagerly gathered them, chasing after those that strayed. When questioned by God, "O Job, have I not enriched you enough?" his reply revealed profound wisdom. "Yes, Lord, you have enriched me, but I can never have enough of your blessing." He recognized these weren't mere insects, but a tangible sign of God's favor, not to be taken for granted. This event symbolized the return of immense, blessed wealth, likely far exceeding what he previously possessed. His health remained robust, and he was granted a long life, another 70 years, according to tradition, allowing him ample time to enjoy these renewed blessings and continue his service to God. But amidst this restoration, the matter of the oath lingered. The promise made in anger to strike his wife 100 times. How could this be resolved without causing harm or breaking a prophet's solemn vow? Here too, divine mercy provided an elegant solution. God instructed Job, "Take in your hand a bundle of grass and strike with it, and do not break your oath." By gathering 100 thin blades of grass or soft palm fibers into a single bundle and striking her gently just once, the technicality of the oath was fulfilled without inflicting pain, preserving both Job's word and his wife's dignity. It was a lesson in mercy, wisdom, and finding compassionate solutions even within strict adherence to vows. Job's life, therefore, became the ultimate illustration of the verse. Indeed, with hardship will be ease. His name became synonymous with patience. His story a beacon of hope for anyone undergoing trials. The Quran immortalizes his legacy. Indeed, we found him patient, an excellent servant. Indeed, he was one repeatedly turning back to Allah. His narrative isn't just an ancient tale. It's a timeless exploration of faith, suffering, resilience, and the mysterious ways of divine wisdom. It compels us to reflect on our own, can we, like him, responses to adversity. When faced with loss, our connection to the divine, even pain or injustice, do we crumble into despair, or can we find within ourselves a measure of Job's unwavering trust? Maintain when answers are elusive and the night seems darkest. His story remains a profound, challenging, and ultimately inspiring testament to the strength of the human spirit when anchored in faith.